It was a picture-perfect Sunday morning in Hawaii. Golden sunlight washed over the white sands. The rhythmic sound of the surf mingled with the laughter of young servicemen. At Pearl Harbor, the U.S. Pacific Fleet lay at anchor, enjoying a lazy weekend. They believed that the war raging across Europe and China was a world away. America, safe behind two vast oceans, was fast asleep. But they were wrong. 7:48 a.m. The silence was shattered. From the sky, hundreds of black specks descended, bearing the red sun on their wings. The roar of engines drowned out the ocean breeze. Torpedoes tore through the water, striking the flanks of the sleeping giants. Tora! 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 The code for a complete surprise attack. In the blink of an eye, a tropical paradise became a living hell. The USS Arizona exploded, taking over 1,000 souls with her to the bottom. Black smoke choked the sky. The water turned slick with oil and blood. The surprise was absolute. The devastation, total. In less than 2 hours, the pride of the U.S. Navy was crippled. The Empire of Japan had placed the biggest bet in history, a knockout blow to remove America from the board before the game had even truly begun. But Admiral Yamamoto, the architect of this attack, did not share in the celebration. He uttered a prophecy that would haunt the empire. I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. And that giant did wake up. America didn't collapse. Instead, its shock turned into cold fury. Auto plants retooled to build tanks. Assembly lines for refrigerators began churning out bombers. Women traded their aprons for welding masks. The entire nation transformed into the greatest arsenal of democracy the world had ever seen. 6 months after Pearl Harbor. June 1942. A tiny speck in the ocean called Midway. The Japanese Navy laid a trap to finish off the American fleet. But this time, the Americans were reading their mail. U.S. intelligence had cracked the Japanese naval code. America knew exactly where and when. The Battle of Midway began. A deadly chess match played out on the sea and in the sky. Then, the turning point arrived. In 5 fateful minutes, just 5 minutes, American dive bombers found their mark. 3 of Japan's 4 heavy carriers were engulfed in flames, sinking beneath the waves. Japan lost its sword. The tide of the Pacific War had turned forever. The hunter had become the hunted. But victory would not come cheap. The road to Tokyo was long, paved with thousands of islands turned into fortresses. The U.S. adopted the strategy of island hopping, bypassing strongholds, cutting off supply lines, and seizing only strategic airfields. But every beach the Marines stormed was a green hell, dense jungle, mud, malaria, and relentless rain. Their enemy was not just the unforgiving elements, but soldiers fighting by the code of Bushido, death before dishonor. Guadalcanal, Peleliu, and the meat grinders of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Here, the rules of civilized warfare did not apply. The Japanese dug into caves and tunnels, ready to charge tanks with satchel charges. Banzai charges in the dead of night terrified the raw American recruits. And when cornered, Japan unleashed a desperate final weapon, the Kamikaze, the divine wind. Young pilots in planes loaded with explosives, diving straight into American decks like living missiles. The sky burned, and the sea ran red. Never in modern warfare had life been spent so cheaply for the sake of destruction. By 1945, an iron ring had tightened around Japan. The U.S. Army Air Forces owned the skies. B-29 superfortresses rained thousands of tons of incendiaries onto Japan's wooden cities. Tokyo was consumed by firestorms. Hundreds of thousands of civilians perished. Yet Japan refused unconditional surrender. They prepared for the shattering of the jewel, a national suicide pact to defend the home islands. American planners estimated that an invasion of the mainland could cost 1 million casualties on both sides. A decision was made, the hardest decision in history. August 6, 1945. A lone B-29, named the Enola Gay, drifted over Hiroshima. 8:15 a.m. The bomb dropped, a flash of light, brighter than 1,000 suns. A mushroom cloud rose 60,000 feet into the air. In a heartbeat, a city vanished. Tens of thousands of people were vaporized. Humanity had entered the atomic age with a scream of silence. 3 days later, the tragedy repeated at Nagasaki. That apocalyptic power finally broke the empire's will. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito announced the surrender. For the first time in history, the Japanese people heard the voice of their living God, trembling in defeat. September 2nd, 1945. On the deck of the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, the instruments of surrender were signed. World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, was over. The Pacific has returned to its ancient peace. The waves still wash over the shores, scrubbing away the scars of hate. But over 30 million lives were left behind in the Asia-Pacific theater. That is the ultimate price of ambition and war. Today, looking back at this footage, we do not seek to reopen old wounds. We remember so that we never repeat. Across that vast ocean, there should be no more firestorms, only the currents of understanding and the ripples of peace. Because in the end, whether victor or vanquished, we all lost too much.